If you want to live, don't go geocaching alone. I've been trying my hardest to stay away from other people since we're in the middle of a pandemic. I haven't been going to beaches with friends. I haven't been going to the movies on dates. I've barely left my house these last few months, except to get groceries and walk my dog around the block. Since I've been bored out of my mind, I decided to start geocaching. All you have to do is download an app to your phone and you can start going on treasure hunts. It's pretty fun. It gets me outside. It gives me exercise. And it allows me to explore more of my own town. It seemed like the perfect way to spend my weekends. And it was. At first. If you've never been geocaching before, you should know the treasure at the end of the hunt is usually hidden inside a small jar or container of some sort. Inside, there will be a little notebook or sheet of paper where everyone can write their name. Sometimes, people take it a step further and will leave presents that can be swapped out. Stickers. Erasers. Pens. You take something. You leave something. On my first stop, deep in a forest on the side of a road, there was a jar hidden inside an open tree trunk. It was half filled with marbles. They were grimy, covered in dirt, ruined from rain that must have seeped into the container. I didn't touch them. I simply jotted my name down on the slip of paper and went on my way. My next few stops were in more public places. A jar was hidden beneath a park bench. Another was at the front entrance of a shut-down mall. Another was leaning against a street sign. When it seemed like I had gone to every single geocaching location in my town, I searched through some online forums to see if there were any more I'd missed. I came across a weird post, warning everyone to avoid a certain location. It was one I had already visited, the first one, but I read through the post for the hell of it. It was written like a ghost story. A local myth. Allegedly, every single person who wrote their name on the list inside the jar there had died. They had either gone missing or were found dead, their bodies mutilated. It was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. But I still had a strong desire to scribble my name off of the damn list. Just in case. It couldn't hurt. I returned to the woods, stupidly forgetting to pack an umbrella in my bag. By the time I got there, it was pouring. I ran through the rain, my shirt absolutely drenched, and pulled out the jar from the tree. Under the cover of branches, I slipped out the notepad and plugged the first name into my phone. Mary Shepherd. She came up in an article about a kidnapping. She was listed as a missing person, presumed dead. I tried the next name. Jack Pace, missing person. And the next. Elizabeth Black, missing person. Every single name on the list was missing, murdered, or MIA. Shit. I stuffed the notebook back into the jar, planning to take it to the police. In the process, my finger brushed against one of the marbles at the bottom. Except they weren't marbles. They were too squishy. Too soft. More like eyeballs. I swallowed down vomit, sealed the jar, and clutched it against my chest. I rose from the mud, turned to leave, and stumbled right into a masked man in black. "You have such pretty eyes," he said. And then it all went dark. If someone named Lucy calls you, don't pick up the phone. I'm not great with electronics. I know how to use most of them since I grew up around computers and cell phones like every other kid in their 20s, but I still prefer writing with a pen and notepad. I have a goal tracker inside of my paper planner. I have a wall calendar where I keep track of my appointments. I send my bills through the mail instead of sending payments over the internet. I'm old-fashioned. An old soul. Born in the wrong generation. I never really use the apps on my electronics. I use my phone for texting. I use my computer for typing out documents. I use my smart TV for streaming videos. If I need a calculator, I grab an actual calculator. If I need to jot down notes, I grab the pad attached to my refrigerator. That's why it was so freakishly strange when an alert blared on my phone. It was a reminder that said, "Phone call with Lucy at 6. I don't know how to set calendar alerts on my phone. Not to mention, I don't know any Lucys. But I work at a big company. I know most people by their last names. I could be completely forgetting about someone. I didn't want to get fired over something stupid, so I shot off a text to one of my bosses, who is much more of a social butterfly than me. I asked whether anyone at the company went by that name. They told me no. I asked them whether I was forgetting about any meeting today. No again. I shrugged off the weirdness and turned my phone to silent. If my phone was malfunctioning, I didn't want to embarrass myself in the office when it started blaring again. The workday was normal. Nothing else weird went down. But the next day, I received an actual phone call from Lucy. It was around the same time, 6 in the morning, right when I was slipping a Pop-Tart into the toaster. I answered the phone and heard static. Like a broken television. No one said a word. I was forced to hang up because there was nothing on the other side. No breathing. No rustling. No indication of another person. This time, I asked a few coworkers who had the same type of phone whether or not they had any issues lately. They each had complaints, but not about the same issues I was experiencing. A part of me wondered whether I was getting harassed by an ex or old client. Maybe it wasn't a glitch. Maybe someone was fucking with me. The rest of the day went on without a problem. But the next morning was a Saturday morning. I have insomnia, so I'm always up before the sun, even when my day consists of lounging on the couch eating fruit snacks. I had the television turned on, binge-watching some cringy dating show since I didn't have a love life of my own. All of a sudden, the show zipped away. A video call overtook the screen. I had never used my smart TV for a video call, but considering this one was from the mysterious Lucy, I picked right up. I planned to curse her out. Tell her to stop bothering me. Put her in her place. Except, that's not what happened at all. When I answered it, a man filled the screen. He was sitting in darkness. More shadow than human. I couldn't make out any of the features on his face, but I could see the outlines of horns on his head. The type you would buy at the dollar store for a Halloween costume. And I understood. It wasn't Lucy. It was Lucifer. Rattled, I hung up the call, did a quick Google search, and called the police. Apparently, there's a man going around cosplaying as the devil to scare women who live alone. Some people say he's harmless, he's just a troll and a hacker and a lonely old man with nothing better to do with his time. Other people say he's dangerous, that he matches the profile of a killer that's never been caught. I don't really care who he is. I don't want to find out. I don't want to see him ever again. I'm just hoping the police do their jobs and protect me. I matched with a guy on Tinder who doesn't exist. I hate dating apps. I refused to use them for the first half of my 20s, but I'm getting older and I'm getting less interested in the club scene, so it's going to be hard to meet someone out in public. Not to mention the whole quarantine situation. A few weeks ago, I caved. I downloaded Tinder. I matched with a few guys. I didn't get too attached to any of them, but I did give my number to one. His name was Michael Davids. At least, that's what he said his name was. A nice, normal name. Too popular to be searched because it was so undeniably bland. A way to hide in plain sight. We spent about a week texting back and forth. Then we escalated to talking on the phone. The chemistry was there. It was undeniable. And Jesus, was he attractive? He had the bluest eyes. Shaggy blonde hair. Tanned skin. Muscles visible beneath his tight t-shirt. He wanted to meet up in person, but I turned him down because the only reason I've left my house the last few months was for groceries. I wasn't risking getting sick to give some stranger a blowjob. If he was serious about me, he would wait it out. If he only wanted a hookup, he would move on. He moved on. Normally, getting ghosted wouldn't have bothered me much. It had happened plenty of times in the past. But back then, I could get wasted at a bar and scream Britney Spears songs with my friends and move on to someone new. Stuck in my house, bored and lonely with nothing left to watch on Netflix, it was hard to forget about Michael. I became obsessed with finding out what happened to him. I tried my best to track him down on social media, but I didn't have any luck. I couldn't find any of his pages. I tried to do a reverse image search on his profile picture and that didn't work either. Eventually, I asked one of my tech-savvy friends to help me track him down. She refused until I offered to pay her. She'd recently been laid off and needed the cash. She worked her ass off to find him with the small amount of information I was able to give her. It took her 24 hours to text me a link to an obituary for Michael Davids, a 26-year-old male who died in a car crash 6 months earlier. To be clear, I don't believe in the paranormal. I don't believe in ghosts or spirits or monsters. However, I do believe humans are monsters. I do believe some sicko took that poor boy's photograph and assumed his identity in order to seduce me. I don't know what would have happened if I had agreed to meet up with him. And if it weren't for the pandemic, I 100% would have met up with him. All I know is that I feel lucky to be alive. And I'm probably not going to use dating apps again anytime soon. If I tell you what happened to Hannah, will you finally let me rest? It had been days. No, hours. No. My eyes jolted open. Was I asleep? I don't think so, my eyes were beating down on my lids. That doesn't make sense. I feel horrible, though definitely awake. I started writing again, scribbling on the papers in front of me. The sound of graphite coarsely grating on my notebook was satisfying, it kept my mind working. There was a banging on the door. I had forgotten about the door. God, I hoped that they'd stop trying to reach me. I didn't have time for this. The knocking eventually halted, and I got back to work and glanced over at the clock. 7 p.m., it said. Hannah came home around this time with the kids. How dearly she would kiss my forehead every evening. The pitter of footsteps meant she was elated to see me, she usually was, at least. I always was. My eyes jolted open. Was I? No, this already happened. 7:10 p.m., it said. It occurred to me how quickly my thoughts were flipping through my mind. I started writing again, more attentively this time. That mirror across from my desk was really a terrible placement. Everyone knows how distracting it is to sit in front of a mirror. It's impossible to focus. I'll add it to the checklist of things I have to do, right under finishing my book. Was this even a book I was writing? Hannah always told me to clear my mind, she would know the right words to remedy this dilemma. She and the kids once made me a tiny scrapbook, and when I say tiny, I mean pocket size. The purpose was to keep it with me at all times, to remember who held my heart. They really did, I love them so much. It rips me apart. A teardrop splashed down and melted some of the words I had written. Hannah chose me to be hers, her love. I couldn't reconcile anything anymore. How long had I been awake? I thought about calling Hannah, but that wouldn't make sense. I started seeing colors, yellow, red, blue. Reminded me of the 4th of July, wished Hannah could see this. I considered going to sleep at last, but those words they said to me echoed, the more sleep-deprived you are, the stronger you become. I had to believe them, the last voices I had heard before this silence. I think I will call Hannah, maybe speak to the kids. The banging started again on the door. Why won't they let me call Hannah? I stood up and looked down at my Adidas. I wondered if anyone ever washes shoes. Perhaps I should, since these are mostly white, except for that. What is that? I stared vacantly at the splotches on the leather. They matched those lights in my periphery. Red is a lovely color, Hannah's favorite, too. I thought about when those marks were still the original bright, glistening shade. Pretty. They came in the room without knocking this time, took my papers, and left. Alone at last. Wonder if I can call. Oh right, I can't. My reflection smirked back at me, that was the point. Got sick of her. That guard who took my papers glared at me with satisfaction, deluding himself that sleep deprivation just gave him the statement he wants. I guess they were right though, I do feel stronger. Our little secret.